Thank you. Please stay standing for the opening hymn, number 4, I Feel the Winds of God Today.
Lord, open our lips, and our mouths shall proclaim your praise. O God, make speed to save us. O Lord, make haste to help us. Glory to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and shall be forever. Amen. Thank you. Please be seated. So as is often the case, we gather in chapel with a myriad of emotions and coming out of a whole bunch of different experiences of the week. Foremost, of course, in our hearts and minds is the passing of C.J. Conroy this week. And we will take some time on Thursday morning to honor him. His memorial will be in a local church on Thursday afternoon. So and I'll say a few things at the end of chapel today as well. We also have a number of guests, and I don't know who all the guests are this morning. I just want to take a moment to say welcome, and that we're very pleased to have you. We're always so happy to have guests who are extended parts of the Shawnigan family, so welcome. We also are welcoming an alumna, not sure how to say that, Vicki Strong, who will be speaking to us today. And we're very happy to have Vicki as well. So I will invite Kylie to come forward for the first reading. Kylie.
A reading from Proverbs. Where there is strife, there is pride, but wisdom is found in those who take advice. Whoever disregards discipline comes to poverty and shame, but whoever heeds correction is honored. A longing fulfilled is sweet to the soul, but fools detest turning from evil. Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. The word of the Lord.
Thank you, Kylie. Our gradual hymn is the Case House hymn, Jerusalem, number 5. Please stand. Thank you. Please remain standing for the gospel, and I'll invite Michael to come forward to read, please. So these are the words of Mary, the mother of Jesus, soon after she discovered that she was pregnant with Jesus.
A reading from the Gospel of Luke. And Mary said, "My soul glorifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Savior, for he has been mindful of the humble state of his servant. From now on, all generations will call me blessed, for the Mighty One has granted me one thing. Holy is his name. His mercy extends to those who fear him from generation to generation. He has performed mighty deeds with his arms. He has scattered those who are proud in their innermost thoughts. He has brought down rulers from their thrones, and he has lifted up the humble. He has filled the hungry with good things." The gospel of Christ.
Please be seated. Well, as the Reverend Holland just mentioned a few minutes ago, it gives me a great pleasure to introduce and to welcome to the chapel. I was told it's alumnus or alumna. Right, okay. Alumnus is male. Mrs. Blair. Anyway, we have an alumni here called Dr. Vicky Strong. And we're welcoming her to chapel this morning. Vicky is originally from Nanaimo, and she came to Shawnigan back in the late 80s. And as you know, next month we're celebrating 30 years of co-education. And if your math is any good, well, you will have worked out that Vicky was amongst the first group of girls at the school. In fact, she was here for 5 years, all right? And she was in the actual first set of grade 8 girls to the school, which was up in Schoolhouse. Now, many of you don't know that the Schoolhouse is above the headmaster's office, above the admissions office. There was a girls' dorm up there, which has morphed now, of course, into Strathcona. And at the time, Vicky was a school prefect. She excelled in many, many sports and also in academics. She also had a brother and 2 sisters at the school, so a bit of family history there too. Vicky graduated from Shawnigan in '94 and holds a doctorate degree in biochemistry from the prestigious University of Oxford in England. And also she has a master's from the University of Toronto and a bachelor's degree from the UBC in Vancouver. She's a product and marketing manager in biotechnology and medical diagnostics industry, and now resides in San Francisco. She's also a strong advocate of the promotion of women in science and technology, having co-founded an Oxford Society for the Advancement of Women in Science, which is known as Oxfest. In her spare time, Vicky can be found in the mountains, either trail running, mountain biking, or backpacking. So if you'll join me in welcoming Dr. Vicky Strong.
All right. Hi, everybody. It's really a delight to be invited back to the school to have an opportunity to speak to everyone. And as it's celebrating 30 years of women at Shawnigan, I've been asked to talk about some of the differences between now and 30 years ago. And this morning, I had one. Here you go. I went running on Shawnigan campus for the first time voluntarily. So it wasn't part of intramural cross country. It wasn't because it was raining and tennis practice was canceled. I really hated running when I was at the school. So if any of you breathed a sigh of relief when you heard that the Terry Fox run was postponed, I get it. I was one of you. But I love running now, and I do it all the time. And it was something that I just really, really, really wanted to become good at. I don't know why. I thought it was a fun thing to do, to throw on your shoes and go for a run. And so I worked really hard at it. I did a lot of starts and stops, literally. I had to start at a walking program to build up to 30 minutes of running. I got injured all the time. I spent 6 years not running because of an injury that I didn't know how to treat. But I kept at it, and slowly but surely I started doing races. I did a 5K, I did a 10K, I did a half marathon, and over the course of 15 years of running, I finally worked my way up to ultra distances. And so that's why in 2017, I found myself on the start line of the Tahoe Rim Trail 50-miler. Now, if you haven't been to Lake Tahoe, it's an alpine lake on the border between California and Nevada, and it's surrounded by mountains. And the race takes place in July. The average temperatures are in the mid-30s. And that year, there had been a particularly heavy snowpack, and so at the higher elevations, up around 2,800 meters, there was actually deep, slippery, melting snow that went up to your knees. So this isn't just running 50 miles, it's running 50 miles under pretty adverse conditions. But the most challenging part of the race happens at around mile 30, so 50 kilometers in. You hit what's called Diamond Peak. It's a 2-mile stretch of trail that goes straight up the face of a ski mountain called Diamond Peak. It's 16% average grade, and it has absolutely no shade. And I hit it at the hottest part of the day, around 3 o'clock. But I was feeling really good leading into the section. I'd had a good 30 miles. I paced myself well. I was in good spirits, and I saw my crew at the aid station right at the bottom of Diamond Peak, and I said, 50 miles, it's actually pretty easy. And that was obviously a fateful comment. I picked up my pacer. You're allowed to take someone with you, my friend Shannon, and up we went up Diamond Peak. And on that day, it took me a full hour to do those 2 miles. I was absolutely exhausted. I was hands on knees, legs burning, lungs on fire from the altitude. I was exhausted, and it took everything I had just to get to the top. And when I got to the top, there was a bench, and I sat down, and I started to cry because I was so exhausted, and I had gone from total euphoria to total despair in the space of 2 miles. And I knew the reason I was upset is because I knew that we had a long way to go. We had 29 more kilometers of running, and the highest point of the race was still to come. So my friend Shannon, she was doing her best to comfort me. She was saying, look, you've done really well. And she said, turn around, have a look how far you've come. And behind me was a majestic view of Lake Tahoe that you can see from the top of the peak. But I didn't really want to take in that view because all I could think about was that 29 more kilometers I had to run on legs that I felt were completely trashed. But she says, you have to be proud of what you just did. Not many people have done that. And now we're going to get through the rest. And so I stood up, and I kept going, and 4.5 hours later, I crossed the finish line of the 50-miler, and I was really, really proud of that moment, but I do feel like that Diamond Peak was a real turning point. Now, you might be wondering why I'm telling you a story about me running an ultramarathon. The smartest among you will figure out that, of course, I'm using it as a metaphor. I'm using it as a metaphor for women and the strides that we've made in terms of getting to equal representation of women. And as I prepared this talk, I thought about what it was like to be one of the first girls at Shawnigan and all the progress that's happened since then. And so when I arrived, it was 1989, and I was really excited. I don't remember feeling nervous or strange that we were the first girls in the grade 8 class. I know Alice Stephen is here, and I think she shared the same idea of excitement where we just felt special and proud, and I knew we were going to be the first 5-year girls graduating, and I felt like we were in this special club. And I felt like there really wasn't anything we couldn't do. And when people said to me, like, oh, you're a woman, you can do whatever you want, I was like, yeah, I know, I'm here. And so I just didn't feel like there was any issues, and even though we were in classes that had never had a female in them before, or houses that had never had females in them, there were new things happening, but it felt good. And I carried that feeling of pride and confidence on with me as I went through my studies, through my PhD and into my career. And I knew that, yes, we had some issues. As you heard, I started a Women in Science Society at Oxford to help overcome these issues. They felt that they were manageable, especially as we were making all this progress slowly and steadily, and we're going to get to equal representation. And with some active efforts on our part, females, we were going to be able to get there. And I even came back to the school on a few occasions to speak to the women in science, and I said a lot of the things I had learned. You can do anything you want, just make sure that you sign up, that you take those hard courses, that you fight your imposter syndrome. And now I'm here, 25 years after having left Shawnigan, and I want to share with you some of the immense progress that's taken place. There are greater numbers of women in entering higher education than ever before. Women's starting salaries are increasing, and the gender pay gap is decreasing. There's greater representation of women at almost all levels of government, and there's greater representation of women in management, executive, and leadership roles. And I think we can all feel very proud of that. But while you're feeling proud of that, and while we can be happy, I really feel compelled to let you know that the gender pay gap still exists in most, if not all, sectors. There are greater numbers of women in higher education, but in the fields of STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, there is still well below 50%, and in some cases is decreasing. There are greater numbers of women at the highest level of corporations, but less than a quarter of companies on the S&P 500 have 2 or more women on their boards. And there's just still a significant underrepresentation of women in leadership in areas of tech, finance, public policy, and entrepreneurship, areas that are essential for setting policies and creating the future. So just because we've made a lot of progress doesn't mean we still have a long way to go. So why is there still underrepresentation of women in senior leadership positions? We know there have been enormous initiatives. There's women diversity clubs. There's clubs that I was a part of. There's diversity programs within companies. And I look back at the talks that I promoted the same thing. Lean in, apply for jobs even if you don't have the qualifications, fight your fraud complex, speak up for yourself. These ideas are not new. We've been using them for 25 years since I've been out of school. I can't count the number of courses and lectures that I've attended or taught as part of women's societies, but they still get held up as the reason that there are fewer women than men in leadership positions. 25 years. And here we are. So remarkable progress, but a long way to go. I think we're at the top of Diamond Peak, mile 31 of a 50-mile race. We're a really long way from the start line and a long way from that cross-country race that I didn't want to sign up for. But we have a lot more miles to go on tired legs and sometimes low spirits. I think it's time we need to rethink whether these approaches we're taking are sufficient to achieve gender equality. Maybe there's only so far that women can lean in if they're not in the right room. Maybe we need to think about additional strategies beyond educating women to advocate for themselves and to take on more masculine leadership characteristics, assertiveness, directness, confidence. What if instead we embrace the inherent value that women can bring, leadership traits such as compassion, holistic thinking, emotional sensitivity, empathy, traits that are more commonly attributed to women? Maybe instead of looking at gender diversity as a requirement, we look at it as an advantage. And so what are some of the best ways to get there? There are some very tried and true methods, and I'm going to talk about one today, that are excellent ways to accomplish this, and this is through gender-specific targets, diversity-specific targets, and gender-specific awards. And one of the best examples that I could come up with is Shawnigan, when girls started. Throughout my 5 years at Shawnigan, there was an 8-to-1 ratio, and that number decreased very, very rapidly in those 5 years. It only took 4 years to get our first female head of school. It was not me. But it wasn't an accident, that we ended up getting to diversity so quickly. The school had a target to achieve gender equality. It wanted to get to equal numbers of boys and girls. And parity only happens when you put in the efforts to achieve equality, which means accepting girls at higher rates than boys. And I think we can all agree that was the right thing to do, perhaps the only thing to do. And on an individual level, I'm sure it must have felt really tough. I'm sure there were many parents and students that felt they had been rejected in favor of a girl. I was here when Grove's house was a boy's house. It was my brother's house, and the one I had the most connection with. And I remember the tears of sadness of boys in all years, feeling devastated. Not only did they have to move houses, but their house would still exist but belong to girls. It was not available to them because of their gender. And so I really want to commend the school on pushing through this difficult time to get to an end goal that we all know needed to happen, which is equal representation, and now you don't have a need for inequality or unequal acceptance rates. And why is it so difficult for corporations, governments, entities to implement the same known successful strategies to achieve that goal? And part of the reason is because it's very hard to be on the receiving end of an award that may be given to you because of something out of your control, like your gender. So everyone, just ask yourself, would you rather win an award for the best male biology student or the best female math student? Or would you rather win the award for the best bio student or the best math student? It's no contest. I know how it feels. We don't want to be recognized for achievements because of genders. And when I applied for universities, I applied to Stanford, and it was a pretty exciting time, and I managed to get in, and I was really excited, and I told everyone, and someone asked me once, they said, what did you apply for? And I said, well, I was deep into the physics because of Stephen Lane, and I said, I applied for astrophysics. And the guy said, yeah, that's why you got in. And I was like, what? I don't understand. I was really appalled to think that the moment at that moment I was the recipient of a token award. And so I do understand that feeling of feeling potentially unworthy of an accomplishment because of your gender. But we must remember that the whole reason that these awards exist is so that we can get to a place where they're no longer needed. And so to all the women and all self-identified members of underrepresented groups, please seek out and apply for these awards so you can get us all to a place where they're no longer needed. I encourage everyone here to take part in the efforts to achieve gender diversity. The world that you're being educated in now is very different from the world you'll be working in shortly. And all of us, not just the women in the room, need to look at gender diversity for what it is, an advantage, not a requirement. It's in everyone's interest to be at a place where we don't have to question whether diversity initiatives are playing a role. This is your Diamond Peak, so we've come a long way. We still have a long way to go. Thank you.
Wow, thank you for that, Vicki. Thank you for reminding us that gender equality isn't something that we ought to do, that it's something that is something that we will all benefit from. And thank you for reminding us of how much work there is yet to be done. I think we've made some real strides as a community in the last several years, just really addressing the questions around gender equality, and I think we're asking the right questions, and my sense is that there's kind of a real commitment in this community to be exemplary in this regard. So thank you so much. This is going to really resound for us for a long time to come. Thank you. The musical presentation this morning, I'm going to invite Tessa and Brianna to come forward, and Tessa will tell you what they're going to be doing this morning.
Hello, I'm Tessa, and this is Brianna. We want to sing a song for you that means a lot to us. It is a combination of two songs that I combined that talk about
what happened to my grandma. She was a musician, a songwriter, and a classically trained singer with a soprano voice that would stop people in their tracks with its purity. She was diagnosed with stage 4 brain tumor. The tumor, in a terrible twist of irony, was growing out of her speech center, slowly robbing her of her ability to produce words, even though she knew in her mind exactly what she wanted to say. So we want this song to be a reminder that even though life may be hard, there is always something to fight for. So just like my grandma, you can't give up either.
There goes my heart beating, 'cause you are the reason I'm losing my sleep. Please come back now. And there goes my mind racing, 'cause you are the reason that I'm still breathing. I'm hopeless now. And I am feeling so small. It was over my head. I know nothing at all. I climb every mountain and swim every ocean just to be with you and fix what I've broken. Oh, say something, I'm giving up on you. I'm sorry that I couldn't get to you. If I could turn back the clock and make sure the light defeated the dark, I'd spend every hour of every day keeping you safe. And I would swallow my pride. You're the one that I loved, and I'm saying goodbye. I climb every mountain and swim every ocean just to be with you and fix what I've broken. Oh, say something, I'm giving up on you. I'm sorry that I couldn't get to you. And anywhere I would have followed you. Oh, say something, I'm giving up on you. I climb every mountain. Say something, I'm giving
So people keep asking when are we going to sing Callan Lan, and of course we can't sing Callan Lan until we get Mr. Samuel up to teach it to us. And I've just twisted his arm and tried to get him up here. So finally he's agreed this morning to get up and teach Callan Lan to us, Mr. Samuel.
Well, that pulled at the heartstrings, I must say, girls. That was absolutely fantastic. And coming from where I do, where Mr. Samuels, myself come from, we grew up singing a lot. We had to sing every Friday afternoon around the piano with a teacher in elementary school and sing all these kind of Welsh hymns. And one hymn that most Welsh people know is the one I'm going to introduce you to right now. Many of you, of course, are familiar with the song, but to the new students in particular, if you turn to hymn number 11 in the book, and the heading, of course, is called Calon Lan. Now, Calon in Welsh means heart, all right? And as you well know yourself, I said a minute ago that pulled at the heartstrings. You know, the heart refers to people's character, all right? And it's a place where feelings and emotions come from, all right? And this song is a particular special one for the Welsh. And who knows, tonight Wales are playing Japan, and I can guarantee you, you'll hear in the crowd this song. Oh, sorry. What did I say? They're playing Australia in Japan tonight, and you might listen. If you listen carefully to the crowd, you might hear this song being sung. Anyway, as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Samuels and myself grew up in Wales, and Wales is a small little country of about 3 million people in the UK, not to be confused with England. You know, that's a common misconception out there. We don't come from England, we come from Wales, all right? And it, as I mentioned, about 3 million people, and we were fortunate enough, as was Mr. Doyle and our guest, Mr. Davis today, we grew up in an area where Welsh was our first language. And our GAP student from Cardiff, she also can speak Welsh. Is Finn here today? I don't know, but we were fortunate, as I say, to speak Welsh, and many of you might not know this, but it's a language on its own. It's a Celtic language. It has its own alphabet, and in that alphabet, there's some interesting things. We have about 8 to 10 double letters. All right. So when you look at the book in front of you, Calon, all right, as you see, C, all right, is K, as in Celtic or Celtic, all right? A is A, all right? L is U, all right? Now, in Welsh, we have 2 L's as a letter, 2 called Well done. You have to put your tongue on the top of your mouth and good. Now, can you say Llanelli? Sorry? Can you say it again? Llanelli. Well done, folks. All right. We also have D, which when you D is da, but double D is th, and that's a letter too, th, as in then. We also have CH, which is well done, as in Loch Ness Monster. Have you all heard of the Loch Ness Monster? That's not in Wales. Anyway, so there is, the alphabet is quite an interesting one, and I'll go through this verse with you. As I mentioned, this hymn is a very, very popular one. Listen to the words very carefully, because the words are absolutely brilliant too, in that what's important in life is that you're a good person. And it refers to the heart as being pure and clean. If somebody says that that person's got a good heart, it means that he's a good person. He puts other people in front of himself, and on the list goes. All right? But also importantly, it says, don't strive for money. Money is not particularly important in life. All right? And that's what it's referring to. All right? So there we go. A few, some tips there on how to say a few letters. But let's go and have a crack at this verse here. The verse sounds much better in Welsh. So the school, fair play to you, have adopted the Welsh chorus in the hymn. So if we look down, it says the Welsh chorus. So if you can follow me then and go through these words. Calon lan. Yn llawn daioni. This looks like Japanese here. I'm not sure who printed this bit, but it's tekach, you, na'r lily glos. Good. Dim ond calon lan allgani. Canir dydd a chanir nos. There we go. I'm sure the rest of the school will help the newcomers along here, but it's congratulations to you folks this morning. The singing is wonderful here, and I'm sure this hymn, the melody is beautiful, and I'm sure you new people here will enjoy singing this as well. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Samuel? Fantastic. Thank you all. Please be seated. I'll invite Kathleen Hyde to please come forward to lead us in the prayers.
We take a moment as a community to hold in our hearts those in need. Please respond to the bidding with, "Hear our prayer." For this nation, as it prepares to elect its leaders, and for those seeking office, may they do so with wisdom and compassion. Lord, in your mercy. For scientists who work to further knowledge in order to make the world a better place for all. Lord, in your mercy. For those throughout the world who are marching to bring attention to the climate crisis, that they would be safe and their message heeded. Lord, in your mercy. For those struggling with health issues related to cancer, for all those working for a cure, and for those who work in hospitals. Lord, in your mercy. For friends and family of C.J. Conroy, as we mourn his death and seek to support one another. Lord, in your mercy. For any other needs in our hearts. Lord, in your mercy.
Thanks, Kathleen. And I'll invite you to join me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Well, thank you all. I want to especially thank Tessa and Brianna for that beautiful music this morning. It's always amazing. So thank you so much for that. It was lovely. And of course, I want to again thank Dr. Strong for her really beautiful and powerful message for us this morning as well. As I say, on Thursday morning, we will celebrate and honor the life of C.J. Conroy. And I know many of you have Andy and the family in your hearts. And I want to tell you that Andy has all of you in her heart as well. And she has written this message for us this morning, if I can get through it. Dear family and friends, on behalf of CJ, Gracie Ann, and the rest of my family, we wanted to thank you for your support, love, and friendship in the last couple of weeks. We are very blessed to be part of such a strong community. I take comfort in knowing that you all have our backs. It's times like these you lean against your people, and I am so honored to call you all our tribe. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I think I am strong because of all of you. Have a wonderful day, and tell that special person what they mean to you, as you just never know when you might not get that chance again. Thank you, Andy Conroy. So, this community is an amazing group of people. You have been particularly amazing over the last week. I would just urge you to continue to be gentle and kind with one another, and just carry on being your absolute best selves. And our final hymn this morning is Joyful, Joyful, the Renfrew House hymn, which is hymn number 9. Please stand.
Please be seated. I wanted to just put one more thing in, and Rev knows about this. We gave you the opportunity to talk about why you might be raising money for cancer awareness, why you might be having your ponytail chopped off, your head shaved, or conducting your fundraising that you're doing. I'd like to call on Melody to come up and explain to us why she is contributing.
Hello, everyone. So I'm going to be cutting off my ponytail to donate for cancer. Now, I'm trying to raise funds, and the reason I'm doing this is because my brother has passed recently. And I realized that lots of family members are losing their very close or amazingly loved ones because of this terrible disease. So I had the feeling that if I got enough funds, I could possibly be saving a life and making someone not deal with this painful grief. I just want to hope that all of you maybe perchance could help donate and help us all fix this terrible disease. There will be an email sent later today, and thank you.